Frank. What's the weirdest thing you've ever saw in here?
Let me ask you a question, kid. Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Hey, are we gonna party tonight or what?
Yeah, we are gonna party.
Well, where are we gonna party?
I don't know, somewhere.
Hey, we could go to the park.
Oh, no, we can't. The cops said they'd shoot us if we go back to the park.
Yeah, and I ain't in no mood to die tonight.
I like death.
Greetings, ghouls. Welcome to minute 27 of Do You Want to Party, the Movies by Minute podcast for the 1985 horror classic, The Return of the Living Dead. I'm your host, Troy, and once again, I'm being joined on this festive day by...
Hi, this is Ahmed, aka Savvy, aka Horror Savvy, aka sometimes Scream Jesus as well. I get that too. So
I don't think I've ever seen the Scream Jesus, but okay,
yeah,
Scream Jesus.
It's a
No, I
new
can
one
understand
people
that.
started
I can
throwing at me.
That. All right. Excellent. Just to let the listener in on it, if you are listening to this the day this actually gets released, it is actually Christmas Day. So however you celebrate the festives, hello and all that. If it's not, then it's just a regular whatever day you're listening to this to. But
Enjoy your day off regardless.
Exactly.
If you're not working.
Yeah. Minute 27 starts off with Back to the Cemetery and ends up with Casey questioning her sighting of Freddy. So we begin with the final disappearing view of the cemetery, where all we see is the road flares in the dark when we cut to a 4-quadrant layout shot of 4 characters. On the leftmost in the mid background is Chuck, foot up on a gravestone, his boombox still playing in the area, and he's holding a lit flare ogling Trash's naked body. The next quadrant over is Tina, and she is in the foreground back to the camera. The third quadrant is Trash, formerly mentioned, naked, leaning against a crypt that has an angel perched on top of it. She's the furthest in the background. And finally, the fourth quadrant has standing stoically Suicide, staring up at the night sky. He's someplace between Chuck and Tina's distance from the camera. Tina, with her hands on her hips, addresses Trash's need to still be without clothes.
Why don't you put your clothes on? The show's over.
Chuck, smiling, looks directly at Tina as Trash turns her head in Tina's direction. Suicide stares off into the distance still, unfazed by the situation. Trash questions Tina's uncomfortability regarding her nudity.
What's the matter? Does it make you nervous?
As she twists her torso to have her breasts now facing Tina as well. Chuck's gaze... What?
I said, and the camera.
And the camera, yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, she is basically in front of the camera, so yes, technically, yes. Chuck goes back to Trash now that he has more to view. Clearly uneasy with Trash's response, Tina drops her arms, pivots in place, and walks away. Chuck watches Tina leave, and Trash begins fanning herself with one of her hands and points out her current rising temperature.
I'm hot.
Stepping over the boombox all the time, still which is still playing Party Time by 45 Grave, Chuck walks towards Trash, who himself is slowly advancing towards a still unmoving Suicide. And when Chuck reaffirms Trash's hotness...
Yeah, you are hot.
Suicide finally breaks his statue state to say his piece that sounds threatening enough for Chuck to quickly exit the area.
Scram, wimp!
And grabbing his music box as he hightails it out of there. Trash closes the distance between the two of them. This is now just Suicide and Trash still in the same shot. She tentatively reaches out to caress the leather of Suicide's jacket sleeve. This starts Suicide on his monologue about him trying to help the others, only to have him being called names.
Nobody understands me, you know that? I fucking bust my ass for you guys, and what do I get? You spooky.
He angrily drops a few F-bombs first at Trash's and then the collective's direction.
Fuck you, man. Fuck you all.
All the time, Trash is now grinding herself against Suicide's leg, her hand grasping at his crotch.
I like it spooky.
She mentions how much she appreciates him, and he continues his tirade about how his look isn't a costume and how it's a statement.
I mean, I got something to say, you know? What do you think this is all about? You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.
Wanting to up the ante, Trash now stops in front of Suicide, wraps her arms around Suicide's neck, and her tiny little body continues, compared to his, still seductively grinding against him.
Oh, yes.
He looks down at her as she moans and groans. He then shames her for her behavior and pushes her aside.
Hey, what's wrong with you, man? Show some fucking respect for the dead, will ya?
She stumbles dejectedly away from him. We then cut to Casey wandering by herself, chewing on a chocolate bar, staring off in the distance before her. Chuck slowly starts to light a cigarette, slowly walking between tombstones, approaches her. She herself steps forward and a bit, obviously aware that someone is joining her. She asks about what she sees.
Hey, is that Freddy?
Chuck questions her observations. When she restates her point,
Over there going into that building.
Chuck shuts her down.
Nope, that is not Freddy.
All the while, we are given a distant shot of the audience aware of that it is actually Freddy and the others are what they're doing. Before we end the minute, Casey turns, rolling her eyes at Chuck, partly questioning how Chuck could know that. And that's our minute. So we got to interact with almost the whole entire group. I believe Spider and Scuzz were the only ones missing from this particular minute, but they're off doing their own thing, I suppose, at this moment. So when we go over to the commentary track with director and writer Dan O'Bannon and production supervisor William Stout. So William Stout points out that the renting of every tombstone Universal had for rent, and then how he designed a whole bunch of his own that they also manufactured. So this whole entire sequence, this olive grove that they are currently shooting this cemetery, and again in quotes, cemetery in, is an open olive grove with all these olive trees that have Spanish moss hanging from them to give the creepy look. And everything there has been placed by the production crew and all that. So all the multitudes of tombstone on top of tombstone on top of tombstone are all provided by this rental company that they got through Universal and all that. Dan O'Bannon, again, then goes on to talk about him figuring the movie would appeal primarily to guys. So he had a sexy girl taking off her clothes, and how when he saw the audience was equal guys and girls, and how he was wrong, and it would never make that mistake again. So that's about all that we have for the commentary track for this particular minute. Yeah, so at the very beginning of the minute, William Stout talked about the tombstones, which carried over from the previous minute. But yeah, so Dan O'Bannon, again, just goes to say he realized that he made the mistake with not showing more male nudity and all that. And as we've discussed in the back, probably the chance of doing male nudity would probably not have been would have been more detrimental than helpful to the movie, because it would have gotten them definitely in the mid 80s would have definitely gotten them a different rating.
Yeah.
Would definitely not have allowed a lot of people to have seen this movie. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the appeal for that kind of grew a little later on.
For sure. Yeah. Seeing male nudity in a movie. Well, it's also become a little more accepting, especially nowadays.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more the accepting. I mean, like, we had it in the 80s. Like, you go back and you catch even like American Werewolf in London.
Exactly.
Stuff,
yes.
You know.
Yeah. There was.
You do catch it. But you know, the desire to be like, oh, we should have done this equally, definitely came later.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so according to the script, which is The Return of the Living Dead, which is a story and screenplay by Dan O'Bannon, we're using the revision from 1983 of October, and this is based on a story and screenplay by John Russo, Rudy Rickey, and Russell Steiner. Okay, so again, like previous minutes, we are running very, very short scenes in the script that are drawn out a little more in the final product, which usually happens anyways when you're dealing with this sort of thing. Exterior, cemetery, night. The punks are running around whooping. carrying the road flares. The portable Ghetto Blaster stereo tape deck FM radio is blaring their accompaniment. So in this sequence, we have the radio voiceover. This is WAR Slash and Gash Radio. Music from the Music for the immortal mortality.
Interesting.
Don't spin that dial, because we're bringing you Stomp on My Face by the Nerds. All right.
Change that. Yeah.
A good old Dan O'Bannon writing there and all that. So it then gets to Punk Music Thunders, superimpose the titles, 7:33 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Now, obviously, once they figured out where in the North American environment everything was going to actually be placed, they had to switch the time and all that sort of thing. But he still says it's Eastern Daylight Time, which is different from being the opposite coast once we figured that out. So Casey looks over at the mortuary and adjoins the cemetery and spots a couple of figures carrying something. Casey: hey, is that Freddy? Scuzz: where? Casey: over there, going into that building. Scuzz looks. The figures vanish behind the mortuary. There's a light in the window of the mortuary. Scuzz: nah, that's not Freddy. Casey: how do you know? And just to end it off, we'll just end with this line. Scuzz: because Freddy wouldn't be going into the mortuary. And that's all that the screenplay has for it. So if you just play back what we just broke down and all that sort of thing, that whole entire suicide sequence is not in the script.
Yeah.
It does like I went
Changed
a couple of pages down.
Like.
Yeah, they either it's something that they just added the day of or something that they worked on after because again, to pull off this directing, the acting that the actors did, they had a full 2 weeks of rehearsals and all that before they had to start actually shooting any film and all that. So I guess this must have been something that they came up with during that time and all that, which I think is a fantastic way to deepen the character of Suicide and make him less of a two-dimensional violent punk as we've established him to be at this moment.
Seemed like that's what they were going for.
Exactly. So I just find it fascinating that a sequence that is that so detailed in the final film does not have
was definitely a lot looser in the script.
Exactly. Yeah. So now we do the work print comparison, which is basically the culmination of all the shots that they pulled together to assemble a rough cut of the movie. The rough cut, as I previously mentioned, is about 15 to 20 minutes longer than the actual film. And this particular one actually has some nice little bit of a surprise. So it starts off with the flares in the dark, but then we cut to a scene of Spider holding a flare, Scuzz and Casey exploring a small mausoleum. Peeking inside, Scuzz mentions the beer cans, and then there's beer cans thrown all inside of it. He steps away for Casey to get a better look. Spider mentions how he wouldn't want to end up in there. As Scuzz has backed away, he makes himself look like he's headless by pulling his jacket up over his head. And as Casey turns to see this, she screams at the fright and then thumps her fist hard into Scuzz's chest, calling him a dork, and stomps off. He explains his pain from the hit, and both him and Spider watch her walk away. The rest of the minute plays out as it does in the final film. So it's kind of neat to see something that we don't have a script of. We actually don't have a scene from the movie, something that was cut from the movie, which is kind of neat because this minute, goes from minute 26 to 27, in the work print, we are 28:54 to 30:15. So we had an extra longer minute in this particular sequence, which is really kind of cool to see when we get stuff like that. So it's neat because, again, the script also doesn't call for it. So I don't know if this, again, the version of the script we're doing isn't obviously the final script because it doesn't have any of the extra stuff in it, all that sort of thing. But it's just kind of neat to see after all these years, because, again, I'm watching this work print as I explore minute by minute, and it's kind of neat to see some brand new footage that I've never seen before. I wouldn't say it's brand new footage, but it's footage that is new to me. So
Oh, for
it's
sure.
kind
As a
of
big fan, I'm sure it's nice to see.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's also, I mean, it's good to see more of the dynamics of the characters, how they interact with each
Yeah.
other, and all that sort of thing. Which, um, pretty much once the roller coaster gets rolling, and again, I'm using the analogy of a freaking roller coaster, but as that sucker starts going, once the characters at a point get split, they don't come back together for most of the part. For most of the characters don't come back together.
Yeah.
I think it's Spider is the only one that actually is able to interact with pretty much everyone for the rest of the film. For I mean
Mhm.
reasons reasons known later on what happens to everyone else. But yeah. So so that brings us to the end of this particular minute. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this particular episode, that this is the Christmas episode. However, just a little peek behind the curtain is we are recording this a couple of weeks prior to it. To be honest, we are recording the weekend of the Friday the 13th in December of
Mhm.
2024. And we are also something that I try not to make it seem like it's too diegetic, like when you can listen to this episode evergreen. But there's something that I definitely have to put out there, this being a Return of the Living Dead podcast, basically, that on the week of this week that we are recording, several horror themed websites were reporting about an upcoming teaser trailer of
Yep.
something that has been apparently in the works for a while, and both it was Bloody Disgusting and Dread Central separately had reported images coming from a teaser trailer for a 2025 Christmas Return of the Living Dead movie, which is a fantastic thing. Being a longtime fan of the series and all that, and knowing in the past year there has been some controversy about who owns the rights to using the title and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
There was there was some other movies that were supposed to be in the process, but then the idea of who had the rights sort of thing came into play and all that, and so it turns out it seems everything's gotten worked out, and as of next Christmas 2025, we have a Return of the Living Dead sequel. Now, it's a teaser trailer that they've just put out, and it dropped on the, if you go to returnlivingdead.com website, there's a link to that. You go to YouTube, just do a search and all that, where you usually find your trailers and all that. And it is a cute little teaser and all that.
It's
When
not
you,
bad.
yeah, it invokes a really cool aesthetic to it. And when you deep dive into the website and all that, you turns out the production that they're working on for this new movie coming out again Christmas of next year, that it is going to be a return to practical movie making. They're going to be not relying on computer created images and all that as much as possible. And proof of concept is this teaser trailer where they recreate with the original special effects legend John Gardner was just starting his career when he got the job in 1985's The Return of the Living Dead. He left an immediate impression after creating the half-corpse zombie for the film, and then went on to create practical movie magic for the films such as Hocus Pocus, Zombieland, 127 Hours, Seed of Chucky, and the Chucky series. Tony is back working inside the Unita universe, where he was excited to create a new terrifying Tarman using his 40 years of experience and modern techniques, while staying true to the roots of everyone's favorite brain-munching zombie from the original film. Because they keep
That's
the
why
website
I'm
keeps.
like, if they're saying it's a sequel, but it almost seems like it's going to be a reboot.
It almost looks like it's going to be a reboot, but
Yeah, one of
again,
those requels that maybe they're working on or something like
exactly,
that.
exactly,
Yeah.
like a parallel. Well, okay, because we do know that. So, according to the website returnoflivingdead.com, Return of the Living Dead is not a reboot or a remake, but a brand new adventure. Audiences are expected to be welcomed back into the dark humor, sexy, edgy, trioxin-fueled world horror fans first encountered in 1985. Now, this is all from the actual website itself. The teaser clip was produced without CGI or green screen using all practical costumes and effects shot on location. Behind Steve Walsh, Living Dead Media is devoted to the level of vintage in-camera storytelling. So bringing the snow is Snow Business, who is the leading weather effects company in the world, whose work you've seen in The Day After Tomorrow, Wonka, The Walking Dead, Star Wars The Force Awakens, The Hateful Eight, and many more. Again, reading from the website, returnofthelivingdead.com, Return of the Living Dead 2025 takes place in the winter of 1985, a whole 18 months after the events of The Return of the Living Dead, which was July 4th, 1984. A new trioxin leak kicks off a zombie outbreak in a quiet Pennsylvania town. And if surviving the zombie outbreak isn't hard enough, the new characters will have to also contend with blizzard conditions. So next Christmas, it's Tarman who will be coming to town. The Return of the Living Dead, which is what this movie is called.
Yeah.
This sequel is called Return of the Living Dead. There's no "the" on it. So I think that's how they're going to, when you look up on your shelf.
Kind of like how they did Evil Dead and The Evil Dead,
The Evil Dead, exactly.
Yeah.
So Return of the Living Dead, when you're watching the trailer, it has the date of 1985 showing up, and the fact that it is Christmas, we got to figure out a way how, spoiler alert, Tarman gets his head put back on. But that being said, it's a really cool shot, and it's, again, the sequence, if you've seen it, it's a snowy graveyard, door swing open, and in the distance we see this character walking towards camera, dragging a lit Christmas tree. We don't see a great bit of detail because it's all at nighttime and it's all lit from above, but it's the dark Tarman character dragging a Christmas tree that is lit. And after a certain point, the extension cord gets to the end and unplugs the tree, but he still keeps walking forward and all that. So it's obviously, we're getting a good Christmas theme. The fact that whole entire sequence was practically shot. There's no special effects. There's no digital effects, used in this sequence. It's all in-camera angles and effects and whatnot. Writer, director, and producer Stephen Walsh, who studied screenwriting under the storied Professor John Galvin, whose other students include Jonathan Nolan, Jim Gaffigan, and John Maloney. Walsh went on to write and direct his first film, Muck, in 2015, followed by Kill Her Goats and Fog City, both in 2023. As the director of this new film, Walsh has fought for it to be one of the most ambitious modern films ever made that is completely free of CGI. As CEO of Living Dead Media, Walsh's efforts have brought the original film's exposure and popularity to an all-time high. The fact that it was also filmed in California. They spent about $50,000 just to do this trailer, which seems like a lot.
It's nice to know if they're shooting it in California. I mean, I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, that it's not something like I don't know if you saw the Street Trash remake and stuff like that, or reboot.
Yeah,
I wasn't so pleased with those. I'm hoping this is more legit.
Well,
it looks like it.
It looks like they're honing in on the feel of the original. Now, of course, it's going to be digital shot and all that sort of thing. So you're going to get a more elaborate look to it and all that, and the soundscape will probably be different.
Everything is kind of like that now.
But the fact that they're devoted to being as practical as possible for this movie is a really good sign. Now, of course, we don't have any listing of who's going to be in the cast. We don't have any sort of script idea or just a story idea. It's just that it is going to be a continued story in the as they call it, the UNITA universe, which is kind of neat, which is I like that, the idea of calling it the UNITA universe. So you're going to have your own style of zombies. So you'll have slow zombies, you'll have fast zombies, you'll have talking zombies. So it's great. They'll be craving brains and whatnot. So it's just, but it's an exciting thing to have happen at this point, knowing that we are now rolling into 2025 will be the 40th anniversary of the release of the original 1985 movie in August, which we'll be doing something exciting for this podcast as well. Hopefully, fingers crossed. As no one can see, I'm crossing both my fingers. But yeah, it's kind of neat. So again, I couldn't go any further without bringing this information to the masses. Now, of course, you guys are getting this 2 weeks after the fact that it has already come out. Because
yeah, but I don't think we're getting any other trailers in the meantime. So
no, we're definitely not going to be getting anything.
Still pretty on point.
But it'll probably be a ongoing thing. So because this podcast itself is going on for another year and a couple of months. We'll be going to February of 2026 at this pace. So we will be doing, I will be dropping information about any progress that comes up with the 2025 release of Night of Return of the Living Dead. And so it's just an exciting time to know that that there's people that are involved with the original and those that love the original that are doing an homage to it. At least that's what I'm hoping it is. Again, at this point, we have the teaser trailer, which looks spectacular. And so that's all I got to say about that. All right, so we're going to wrap up this particular minute. Most of it is talking about something that isn't even the movie that we're talking about, but hey, it's an exciting time for horror fans, and especially those of the UNITA universe, which I think I'm going to be using a lot more than that.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like it's going to be a thing.
Yeah. All right. So I want to thank you, Ahmed, for joining me for this basically quick little run through of an episode, which was kind of nice. A nice little smooth one for Christmas. So you're not sticking around for like a long thing for Christmas, just something to keep in place.
That's all good.
So do you have anything that you want to promote, like a place where people can track down your stuff?
Well, you can always find me on Instagram, Horror Savvy. I think I'm on Blue Sky now as well, although that's something new that we're still kind of tweaking. For my YouTube channel, you can find me at Standing in the Horror section. Now, actually, it's 2.0. Interesting enough, I'm figuring out the direction that's going on with that podcast. My co-host just actually left.
Oh no!
So yeah, I'm just trying to working on the future of that and see what to do with it. Yeah.
I'll leave all this your stuff in the show notes and all that, so people can just quickly check out your stuff there. And once again, thank you, Ahmed. I also want to thank my audience because, again, like I keep saying, it's wonderful to see. I mean, not huge numbers, but the numbers are growing. 1 or 2 people a week is fantastic to see, and it's really neat. So I'd also like to give a special shout out to listener William, who posted a comment on minute 2, which was called 2AFPT. To paraphrase his comment, he points out that he himself is a zombie baby, having been born the year Night of the Living Dead was released, and that he saw Return of the Living Dead first hand in theaters when it was released. He also mentions that Tarman is his favorite zombie. So, well, thank you, William, for reaching out. We really appreciate it here. And if anyone else out there wants to drop a comment in any of our episodes, we'll definitely give you an episode shout out. Right, so once again, thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, audience. And until next time, see you next Wednesday. You've just been listening to a Planet Geek production of Do You Want a Party? A Movies by Minute podcast of the 1985 The Return of the Living Dead. Please be sure to subscribe, download, comment, share, rate, and review. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, or Letterboxd. Search for Planet Geek Productions. X, former Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, search for Planet Geek Pod. Or send us an email to planetgeekpod@gmail.com. Our closing music is provided by Night Chill. See the show notes for more details. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and farewell, fiends. So our script, basically, I have the wrong information. Just a sec. I got to find the right script part. I had
all
it
good.
pulled out earlier, and then I went to look at it, and it's not there. There it is. There. I looked at the wrong one. There we go. All right. So we'll just start off with the description. Okay, well, I'm going to let you go, sir. Thank you again for this.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
yeah, I'll
Thanks
keep
for having
touch
me.
about Nosferatu. And if I don't talk to you before then, I'll talk to you when I talk to you.
Sounds good, brother.
Okay.
All right. If I don't talk to you, Merry Christmas, but I'm sure we'll
pass
talk.
on my thank you very much, man, and pass on my thumbs up to the Jason Voorhees to
yeah,
the
for
girlfriend there,
sure. I'll
'cause
let her
that
know.
was that. Just watching the process just you went through and all that sort of thing. Now, did you
Yeah.
know anything about that, or did she like surprise you?
Well, she asked, like, coming back from Frightmare in the Falls, we saw a bunch of Jason
Right.
masks, and I was looking at
Ah.
possibly buying one, and then I'm like you can do this,
Nice. Okay.
right? I'm like, you could definitely do this, and we've kind of been talking about it ever since. And then now basically, uh, she was just like, "Oh, do you want me to do it?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if you're gonna have time to do it like the day of." I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Like, we'll do it some other time." And I got home from work, and she had it done, and I was like,
Sweet.
"Awesome,
Sweet. Nice. All
awesome,
right.
just
All
in
right.
time." Yeah,
Okay. Again, thanks for the Christmas episode, and I
yeah,
will
man.
talk to you. I'll definitely talk to you soon. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Talk to you
Have a
later,
good one.
sir. Bye bye.
Later.